Welcome in, everyone, to Spiritual Roots Podcast with me, Misty, where we talk about life, the magical, mundane, and everything in between. Thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate it. This week's episode is a listener suggestion, and I was really happy to get into this topic, and that topic is spirit guides. Thank you so much, Dixie, for the suggestion, and thanks for listening to the show. It means so much. Thank you so much. If you haven't already heard, I do read tarot and oracle cards, and recently, in the past month or two, I discovered I can see the color of spirit guides for the person I'm reading for, if they do in fact come forward. And it happens slowly, and there are no features, just their color and shape, and I found this to be very interesting, because it never happened when I'd read for someone before. A new ability unlocked. It was so intense. It was such a cool experience. And I've been able to do it if the spirit guide likes to come forward for someone that I'm reading for. And it was just so cool. And I've been able to do it a few times now. And I look forward to keep practicing on that ability. For me, I have 5 spirit guides. One is a Native American man, and he's my strongest one. And he came to me right before I stopped drinking, and he's been with me ever since. I see and feel him the most. He's the strongest. The other is a woman who doesn't show up as often, but I have seen her when I travel in my dreams or meditations. And the others are my grandparents. And my 5th one, I'm not sure. I think I have an idea, but it has not been confirmed. I do have an interesting story that recently happened. I went to a past life regression meditation event not that long ago, and the shop owner was gracious enough to take our aura photos when we were finished up, and I'd never done that before. And I was like, heck yeah, let's do that. And then, like I said, it was my first time having it done. I know, I can't believe it either. When she read the picture for me, she stated, "You have 5 spirit guides," among other things that were explained in the picture. And when I got home, I noticed a painting I had done from the Paint Your Spirit Guide event that I had attended a couple years earlier. And wouldn't you know it, there were 5 guides in that painting that came to me in that meditation. And I couldn't believe it. I completely forgot about it, to be honest. And my mind was blown. And that was confirmation to me. And it still gives me goosebumps. Oh my goodness. It was so cool to see that come through. And this topic is such an in-depth one. I will only be scraping just the surface. As always, light a candle if you have one nearby. Grab your tea or a favorite bevy. Settle into your favorite cozy space, and let's take a ride to the other side. Today we're diving into the topic that has fascinated humanity for centuries across cultures, spiritual traditions, and mystical practices. Spirit guides. Who are they? How do they communicate with us? Are they always with us? And perhaps the biggest question of all, how do we begin building a real relationship with them? Whether you're deeply spiritual, cautiously curious, or somewhere in between, this episode is meant to be educational, grounded, and approachable. Connecting with spirit guides doesn't require perfection, psychic powers, or elaborate ritual. More often than not, it begins with listening, just being still. So today, we'll explore the history and folklore surrounding spirit guides, the different types of guides people report encountering, signs and symbols associated with them, spiritual protection, meditation practices, and practical ways to strengthen your intuition and connection. What are spirit guides? The idea of spirit guides exists in some form in nearly every culture around the world. While the terminology changes, the central belief remains surprisingly similar. They are spiritual intelligence that assist, protect, teach, or accompany human beings throughout life. Some traditions view guides as ancestors, others see them as angels, ascended masters, animal spirits, deities, or compassionate energies that exist between worlds. At their core, spirit guides are believed to be non-physical beings connected to your soul journey. Many spiritual practitioners describe them as helpers rather than controllers. A guide does not override your free will, so I just want that to be understood. Instead, they offer nudges, insight, protection, synchronicities, and encouragement. One of the most important things to remember is this: connecting with spirit guides should never feel fear-based or disempowering. Healthy spiritual connection feels supportive, grounding, and compassionate. Your intuition matters, your boundaries matter, and discernment matters. Let's take a deeper look at how spirit guides appear throughout history. In ancient ancestor veneration, which we talked about here on the show before, in many ancient cultures, ancestors were believed to remain spiritually active after death. Families would leave offerings, food, incense, or prayers for their departed loved ones, believing the dead could offer wisdom and protection. In parts of Africa, Asia, indigenous traditions throughout the Americas, and Celtic cultures, ancestor reverence was woven into daily life. The boundary between the living and the spirit world was seen as thinner and more fluid than modern Western culture often portrays. The ancient Romans honored household spirits called lares and penates. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm so sorry. In Japanese Shinto traditions, ancestral spirits remain deeply important. In many indigenous traditions, ancestors are not gone, but transformed. For many people today, spirit guides may first appear through dreams of loved ones who have passed on. Many indigenous spiritual systems include the belief that animals, nature spirits, and ancestors can act as teachers or guardians. It's important to approach these traditions respectfully and avoid appropriating sacred practices that are closed or ceremonial. But educationally speaking, many indigenous cultures teach that the earth itself is alive with spirit and wisdom. The idea that animals carry messages or symbolic medicine is especially widespread. For example, owl may symbolize wisdom, mystery, or death or rebirth. Bear often represents strength and introspection. Wolf can symbolize instinct, loyalty, and intuition. And deer may embody gentleness and sensitivity. I often associate also deer with rebirth as well, or shedding old ways, just because deer do shed their antlers and they have to go through that painful shedding of the velvet on their antlers. And if you've ever looked into that, it is pretty messy and it's ugly. It's an ugly process. So I sometimes associate deer with that rebirth aspect as well. Animal symbolism appears in cultures across the globe, though meanings vary depending on tradition. The modern spiritual movement often describes several categories of spirit guides. Not everyone believes in all of these, and experiences vary widely, of course, but here are some commonly discussed forms. Our ancestors. These are deceased family members or beloved figures connected to your lineage. Some people feel especially protected by grandparents or relatives they never even met physically. Ancestor guides are often associated with familiar scents, your dreams, family symbols, strong emotional comfort, sudden intuitive knowing. In animal guides or spirit animals, animal guides may appear repeatedly in dreams, meditations, visions, or synchronicities. Again, it's important to be respectful with the term spirit animal, as some indigenous traditions hold sacred meanings around it. Some people instead use phrases like animal guide or animal ally. It's up to you. Choose your own journey, my friends. Animal guides often appear during specific phases of life. You may notice one particular creature showing up everywhere when you're navigating a lesson or transformation. Ascended masters, and this one intrigues me. In certain spiritual systems, ascended masters are believed to be highly evolved spiritual teachers who once lived human lives. Some examples include figures like Buddha, Jesus, Kuan Yin, Merlin, Mother Mary, Lady Nadia. People who work with these energies often describe themes of compassion, wisdom, healing, and enlightenment. Of course, we have angels. In many faiths and spiritual paths, angels are believed to be divine messengers and protectors. The concept of guardian angels appears in Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and modern spiritual practices. People often report sensing angelic presence during moments of crisis, grief, or even major transformation. And my friend Dawn's quote keeps coming back up to me. Spirituality, the same story but in a different font. And that keeps coming up for me as I'm going through this episode with you all. Signs associated with angels may include feathers, sudden warmth, like feeling hugged, repeating numbers, a feeling of peace, dreams, or intuitive messages, and some signs that guides may be reaching out to you. So let's talk about that. Signs people commonly associate with spirit communication. And before we do, I do want to add something important. Not every coincidence is supernatural, right? Healthy spirituality leaves room for both mystery and groundedness. You don't need to force meaning into every moment. That's not always the case. Make it special. If it's really something that stood out to you, I believe that is like a true sign from your guides or your angels. But many people report patterns that feel deeply personal and spiritually significant, like repeating numbers, for example. Sequences like 111, 222, 444, or 777 are often interpreted as spiritual nudges or confirmations. Some believe 111 represents manifestation and alignment, 444 relates to protection and support, 777 connects to spiritual awakening. Whether you see these as divine communication or meaningful synchronicity, they can become moments of mindfulness and reflection. And I do have one book that I always go to for reference with angel numbers, and it's the Angel Numbers book by Mystic Michaela, and I will link that in the notes. There's also an oracle deck that's attached to this as well, which I did not know about until I was looking up the link for the book to share with you all. So that might be interesting to get both of them together. Dreams. Dreams are one of the oldest forms of spiritual communication recorded in human history. Ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and many mystical traditions believe dreams could carry divine messages. Spirit guide dreams often feel unusually vivid, emotional, or memorable. A guide may appear as a human figure, an animal, a glowing presence, a voice, or even symbolic imagery. Keeping a dream journal can help identify patterns over time. So back to the journaling episode that I did. A dream journal can be very helpful, especially if you're one that forgets your dreams very easily. If you're wanting to explore more, maybe guidance from your guides, if they come to you through dreams, this is a great way to work with them. Sudden intuitive knowing. Have you ever known something without understanding how you knew it? That inner quiet voice, the sudden feeling to take a different road, like I should go left instead of right. That instinct that protected you. Many people associate these intuitive nudges with spiritual guidance. Intuition itself is a powerful human ability, whether you view it as spiritually, psychologically, or both. The difference between intuition and fear. This is one of the most important parts of spirit work. Beginners often ask, how do I know if it's a guide or just my imagination? And that is a valid question. And honestly, sometimes it can be difficult to tell at first. But many experienced practitioners describe intuition as feeling calm, clear, gentle, consistent, and non-forceful. Spirit communication should never encourage harm, isolation, superiority, or fear. Healthy guidance supports your well-being and your growth. And here are some tips for creating a safe spiritual practice if this is something that you want to start, or if you just want to encourage a safer space for yourself. Before attempting any spiritual communication, grounding and protection are incredibly important. Think of spiritual hygiene the same way you think of emotional hygiene. Boundaries matter. Here are a few simple practices many people use before meditation or spirit work, and I myself use some of these practices. Cleansing. So some common cleansing tools that you could use could include incense, sound bowls, bells, rosemary, cedar, lavender, or salt, or all of the above, if you want to include those in some way. Smoke cleansing has roots in many traditions, so please be mindful and respectful of sacred cultural practices. Just keep that in your back pocket. Grounding. Grounding can help us anchor our energy and calm the nervous system. Simple grounding techniques include walking barefoot on grass. That's the easiest one, in my opinion. I've been in a very chaotic situation where I felt very emotionally overwhelmed, and I simply just took my shoes off and stood in the ground and just was present for a few moments, and I truly felt myself be calm. It's actually pretty incredible how just walking in some grass, it's not just a clever term. It actually does work. Holding a crystal, some deep breathing, visualizing roots extending into the earth, touching something textured or natural. So example for a tree, natural and textured, their bark. Drinking a grounding beverage such as herbal tea or adding cacao to your workings. I have a favorite brand I like to work with cacao, and I will link that in the show notes as well. Some crystals often associated with grounding include black tourmaline, smoky quartz, hematite, obsidian, just to name a few. Whatever calls to you, whatever crystals you like to work with. It's totally whatever aligns with your energy. Here are some herbs that are associated with spirit communication. Many magical traditions associate certain herbs with intuition, dreams, and spiritual awareness, and these include mugwort, of course, lavender, jasmine, bay leaf, rosemary, and chamomile. And all of these are very easy to find. You could go to most any garden center and find lavender. Jasmine, I've yet to find jasmine at my local garden centers, but you can find it. It's out there. Bay leaves, you can get them at your grocery store. You could grow bay. Rosemary, that's pretty abundant everywhere. Chamomile also, you could grow any of these in your garden or get them at your local garden center already grown. If maybe you don't have a green thumb, but you would like to incorporate some of these herbs into your practices. Historically, mugwort has been especially connected with dreaming and divination in European folklore. Lavender is often used for peace and spiritual calm. Rosemary has long been associated with remembrance and protection. I feel rosemary is like the clear quartz of herbs. Always research herbs carefully before burning or ingesting them, especially if you have allergies, pets, or medical conditions. Especially if you have medical conditions, because there are a lot of herbs out there that can have interactions with medications. Maybe it doesn't make your medication work as well. Just be mindful of that and do your research. And you could do a simple meditation to meet your spirit guide if you haven't already. Meditation is another great way to connect with your guides. Meditation experiences vary greatly, of course. Some people experience vivid imagery immediately, while others develop connections slowly over months or years. And I will link a meditation to meet your spirit guide in the show notes, a YouTube video, but honestly, there are so many to choose from. If you don't connect with one that I link, don't get discouraged. Keep searching and you will find one that you will connect with. Two apps that I love to use are Insight Timer and Moonly. They both have great meditation options. Insight Timer I use more often. Love Insight Timer. But both apps do have a free option, but they also have paid options if you want to dive a little bit deeper. Now let's get into some deities associated with guidance and wisdom. Throughout mythology, many deities have been associated with crossroads, intuition, guidance, and spiritual insight. One well-known figure, and she has come up a ton lately, is Hecate from Greek mythology. Hecate is often connected with liminal spaces, intuition, spirits, and protection. She is traditionally associated with keys, torches, crossroads, and dogs. Another important figure is Hermes, the messenger between worlds in Greek mythology. In Egyptian mythology, Anubis guided souls through the afterlife. In Norse mythology, Odin sacrificed greatly in pursuit of spiritual knowledge and wisdom. These mythological figures reflect humanity's long-standing desire to understand the unseen and seek guidance beyond ourselves. And I can only speak for me, but I always feel like there's something more. And I'm sure as listeners of my podcast, you feel a similar way. And I love that we have a connection like that. But I feel like there's always something more. There's something more that we can look into and get guidance other than ourselves. Let's talk about my favorite topic. I'm sure you all love hearing me speak about this, and that is journaling. Journaling and building a relationship with your guides. Now, you know I wouldn't skip an opportunity to talk about journaling. Connecting with spirit guides is often less about dramatic supernatural experiences and more about relationship building. Like any relationship, trust develops over time. A spirit guide journal can help you track your dreams, synchronicities that show up for you, meditations that you partake in, symbols that you see, emotional patterns, repeating animals or numbers. Some questions you might journal include: what signs have I noticed recently? What environments make me feel spiritually connected? What fears do I have around spiritual communication? What does safety feel like to me spiritually? What intuitive moments stand out in my life? Over time, patterns will often emerge. Now, there's always a touch of skepticism in spirituality, and they can coexist. You can believe, but you can also have a touch of skepticism. There's always two sides of a coin, right? That light and that dark. I think this part is important to talk about openly, honestly. You don't have to abandon logic or critical thinking to explore spirituality. In fact, discernment is healthy. It's important. There's a space for wonder and groundedness to exist together. Some people experience spirit guides as literal beings. Others interpret them psychologically as symbolic representations of intuition, ancestral memory, or the subconscious mind. And honestly, the meaning you derive from the experience matters more than forcing certainty. If a practice helps you feel more connected, compassionate, reflective, and grounded, that can hold value regardless of how you define the phenomenon. At the heart of spirit guide work is connection. How do we feel when we feel connected to our guides? That's the important part. What guidance have they given us? How do we connect with that guidance? Connection to intuition, connection to ancestors, connection to nature, connection to the unseen mysteries that humans have explored for thousands of years and will continue to explore well after we're gone. Maybe spirit guides are divine companions. Maybe they are energetic archetypes. Maybe they are reflections of the deepest wisdom already living within us. Whatever your belief, the journey begins the same way, by slowing down enough to listen and notice. Thank you so much, my friends. This is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for coming along with me. This has been fun. Thank you again, Dixie, for the suggestion. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. And take care. Thanks for coming along for the ride, travelers. If you're enjoying the show, please share, like, or leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. If you have ideas for the show or would like to say hello, you can email me at spiritualrootspodcast@gmail.com. Please keep sharing the show so we can keep finding our spiritual roots together.